Art for me is very simple. It's just about freedom. My name's Liber Lewis, and I'm a painter from London. These paintings have taken at least 3 years to complete because I've been in dialogue with my old self. I guess I've been in dialogue with many different kind of thoughts that have arisen. I mean, my work has changed dramatically in the last 3 years. It used to be very hard-edged, and now it's loose. I spent a lot of time in Regent's Park, and I think nature is starting to creep in. There are motifs of flowers emerging, and the sun is coming up. Some of the imagery reminds me of being underwater. But there's kind of loose motifs. I guess I didn't want to be too didactic anymore. I didn't really want to explain where the work was coming from. I didn't want to lead with any kind of personal information. I wanted people to stand in front of these works and bring themselves to it. So I guess the element of figuration that you're talking about is the viewer now, you know, how people respond to these works. Risk, I love risk in painting. In the studio, what does risk look like? Well, I think one of the pieces that is my favorite from this show was a real battle. I often, in the past, have talked about painting being a bit like fighting or sex, or, you know, a very visceral experience. And I no longer fight so much with making painting. Painting comes a lot easier to me now. But the painting that has the most resonance for me in this painting is the first one as you come in through the door. And that painting was nearly ripped off the stretcher bars, but I guess it was completed by dropping it from a great height onto a sheet of plastic paint that I'd rolled out. And it was that kind of collaboration with a physical act of frustration that was a risk, because it could have completely damaged the work, but it completed it. Well, not all of the marks have been tested. I mean, some of them have. The painting that I talked about earlier that was painted over the word death was almost like my palette for testing out marks. It was a painting that I didn't really care about. It was where I would test out a kind of particular way of working, whether that was working with a different material, because I no longer use paintbrushes anymore. The paint is put on with whatever else is in the studio, whether it be a t-shirt or a bit of cardboard or a crunched up bit of plastic. You know, I'd like to find interesting ways to get the paint on the canvas, because it's about how I feel in the studio. I want to kind of extend my body in a certain way. So that painting was actually not something I was really composing. I wasn't really deliberately trying to make that painting. I thought I might even throw it away. But when I stepped back, I realized that this painting had kind of painted itself. The paintings have evolved over a long period of time, and there have been many evolutions. I mean, there's probably about 3 or 4 paintings underneath. And I find that to make a painting that works, you need a certain amount of armature. You need a certain amount of something to hang the image on. So actually underneath a lot of these very kind of loose, expressive marks are very kind of tight, controlled images. So it's a negotiation between the two. Well, I think, you know, the paintings are influenced by lots of things. You know, when I first started painting, I don't know, when I returned back to painting over 10 years ago, I was really keen to paint a space that I felt comfortable in. I mean, I'm really influenced by lots of different people, but Agnes Martin is somebody that kind of I return to. So that some of these works start from like an architectural space, somewhere where I want to physically be, and then it's an evolution from there. I mean, there are devices in some of the works which are, you know, very simple grid-like forms, but then, you know, also I like to work with faces and text, and a lot of these things are buried, and it's I erase and I build. So I do a lot of sanding in the studio as well. So if I lose an image, I can sometimes bring it back. So it's a push and pull.